All right, friends, welcome back to these essentials. We're talking about how to set up our children for success in life, and these are 15 things that you can give your children that will greatly, greatly bless them, especially in this modern age that we live in. All right, today is number 4, and this is simply put, being well-read. Our children to be successful in this world. This is something that will really set them up for success, is being well-read. All of the great heroes, I mean, not all, but 99% of all the great heroes, men and women that we look up to from history, were well-read. And this is something, once again, like all of these, this is not complicated. It just needs to be a priority. It's not a priority in our culture, but it can be a priority in your home. I can remember one time I took my 4 older children with me. I was getting some lumber, and as I'm sitting there talking to this man, my kids hopped out of the car, and they found the nearest curb, and they sat down, and they opened up books and started to read. And this man was sitting there, and his jaw just dropped, and he said, "I see what's happening, but it makes no sense to me. These 4 children who were ages, I don't know, 5 through 10 at the time, are sitting down on the curb reading books, and not just, you know, your modern Marvel magazines. They're reading real books." And he's like, "What is this? How does this happen?" And I said, "Well, you know what? Honestly, it's not that difficult. And I want to give you the same strategy that I gave him, and it's not complicated. If you want your child to be well-read, first of all, you have to give them a love for books. Okay, how do you do that? First, and probably the most important step, is you read with them. Now, this means, mom and dad, that you need to take the time from their youngest years to read with them. This means that before they can read, you sit them next to you on the couch or snuggle with them in a chair, and you open up books and you read to them. And you do it often. And you find really cool books, living books about the heroes of the past, the Action Bible, which is a must-have for any Kingdom family. And you go through the Bible, you go through books, and you do it, and they're picture books at a young age, and they have this childhood, warm, fuzzy feeling with books, and they love books. But not only do you read books with them when they're young, also when they get older, I think it's great for mom and dad, especially dad, to read books to the whole family. Right now, our family is going through the book Swiss Family Robinson. We try to do a chapter a day. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes a day, and the whole family gathers around and we read. And some of the younger kids, like Job, he's 5 right now, he doesn't really understand all that's going on, but he enjoys just being there, and he enjoys being part of something that he sees as important. And after I read the chapter, I'll ask questions to make sure that the children are comprehending what we're talking about. And a book like Swiss Family Robinson is great because it's an adventure, it's lots of fun, and yet, man, it talks about how to be a family. It talks about how to train up children. It talks about marriage. It talks about God. It talks about the Bible, so it's really, really good. So you give your child a love for reading. You read to them. That's step 1. Step 2 is you get rid of the distractions. Listen, people think that my kids will just read no matter what, but let me tell you the truth. If my children can either read a book or watch a movie, they're going to watch a movie. If they can either read books or play a video game, they're going to play a video game. So to set them up for success, we have just, by and large, gotten rid of that stuff. And I'm not saying that screens don't have their places. You're looking at a screen right now, but you want to greatly, greatly limit that. Not just to a few times a day. I'd say to a few times a week, maybe just once a week, where they are looking at screens. And it depends on how you do your home education. But you want to be really, really careful. Books need to be, it's kind of like the food table. You know, we have, sweets, just a few sweets, this and that. And then at the bottom of the food pyramid are just greens, plants and vegetables and fruit. Well, that's how it is. You can have a little bit of screens at the top, but man, you just need to have an abundance of book servings a day. All right, so once you give your child a love for reading, and once you take away all of the distractions, the next step, step 3, is to put the right books in your children's hands. There's all kinds of books out there, and some are more important than others. Some are better than others, and you cannot read every book in the world, so you have to be picky. And I think it's really important to be I think that dads need to know what books are in the home. And the dad is the filter. The mom and the dad together are the filters to allow, okay, what books are going to be in our children's homes. There are books today that are very, very popular that might not be the best books for our children to read. So let me give you just 5 categories of books that I would encourage you to consider to put into your children's hands. And these are going to be categories. I'll give a few examples. Someday I want to come out with like a master book list. I think we should be talking books all the time. Okay, first of all, the Bible. The chief book is the Bible, and a habit that we're trying to implement in our home is that the first thing we read when we wake up and the last thing that we read before we go to bed is the Bible. I think it's a good guideline for the Bible to be read every day, for mom and dad especially to be reading the Bible, but also as your children get to the appropriate ages, for them to be reading the Bible every single day and to have a love for it and to speak about it. It says in Deuteronomy 6 that we are to be speaking of God's commands all throughout our day. So the Bible should not just be read, it should be spoken daily. Second category is historical books. Just books on history. Like, for instance, a big seller in our home is A Story of the World. These are 4 books, Story of the World, Volume 1, 2, 3, and 4, that guess what? You read them, and you've got the whole history of the world from creation to the present day. That is such a blessing. Our children need to be able to see, and this is going to be one of the 15 essentials, is just history, but they need to be able to see the scope of history and God's providence in that. So the Bible, and then secondly, books of history. The third category is biographies. So these would be like Plymouth Plantation, which is written by William Bradford. We have the man who came over on the Mayflower writing down the history of Plymouth. These are things that need to be read. Biographies, I mean, of all the great men and women of history, many of them people have either written down their story or those people themselves have written down their stories. I think it's really important for our kids to have those books be put in their hands and encouraged to read them. Fourth category, this is one of my favorite, of course, second to the scriptures, and that is historical fiction. Historical fiction is awesome because it accomplishes so many things at the same time. First of all, it teaches our kids history. Gives them a love for these characters. I think that some of our kids' greatest friends need to be William Wallace and Robert the Bruce. Some of our girls' greatest friends need to be Perpetua and Gladys Aylward. And you can get these through historical fiction. And also it helps our kids with their, grammar and punctuation and spelling and all those academical things if they are just well read. So historical fiction is huge. 2 of our family's favorite authors when it comes to historical fiction is G.A. Henty. His books are incredible. They're great. Like in Freedom's Cause, which is all about Wallace and Bruce, with Lee in Virginia, which is all about the great Confederate General Robert E. Lee. He's got so many amazing books, and they are from a Christian perspective, and they are huge. And also R.M. Ballantyne. These are men who loved history, and they loved Christ. So you're getting history the right way through God's perspective, through a perspective of a biblical worldview. Last but not least, category number 5, this is theology. This is where we can put works of theology in our children's hands, like the writings of Calvin or the writings of Luther, the sermons of Charles Spurgeon or of Wesley. Right now I'm reading through The Cost of Discipleship by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Another great book, a must, is Pilgrim's Progress, the second best-selling book of all time. We need to be reading these to our family, with our family, and putting them in our children's hands. Friends, he who reads leads. And if we want our children to be the leaders of the next generation in the family, in the church, in society, they need to be well read. This is greatly going to set them up for success. And also, it's going to help their brain. Guess what? Sitting in front of screens 7 hours a day is not good for your brain, but reading books, I mean, it's good for your brain, it's good for your body, it's good for your soul. It's a huge, huge blessing. So I would encourage you to really implement this in your home. And it doesn't matter where your kids are at. Growing up, I did not like to read. Now, as an adult, I really like reading, and I'm getting better at it. So it's never too late to cultivate these. Friends, thank you so much for your time. If you're enjoying these videos, please share them, subscribe to them, so that you can get our updates and we can spread this message and other biblical messages as well. Thank you so much. God bless.